Hello everybody, it's me, Danny TCV, the Grand Violin here. Hey, I got requested, probably half sarcastically, admittedly, but I got requested with my first patron member, which is L, known as Al Your Palster on Twitter, Portland's Transport on YouTube. Anyway, a political commentary, one per month, and it's like, my literal instant response was, oh no. And then I actually asked my mom afterward about that and said that that's what he wanted. And then she said, actually, that sounds like a really good idea. It would be really interesting. And I was like, once again, my instant immediate response was, oh no. But hey, why not? So, I have something I actually am going to do. It's not exactly a political commentary. It might turn into one, I don't think so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about and show you my political compass. My 9 axes and 8 values. Either that is 9 values and 8 axes. I don't remember which one is which, because I, of course, am dyslexic. So, one of the things I wanted to touch on really quickly is the fact that, again, people change. I know, right? Who would have thought? Not me. I don't know why you'd ever suggest that. After all, society dictates on the internet that everybody has to be a cookie cutter of each other and exactly the same and believe and think and act and react and do everything that they tell them to, because otherwise you're every pejorative of the book. You're racist, sexist. We've been through this a million times before. Listen, the point is that everybody changes. Sometimes you might even not realize that you've changed a lot in a very, very short period of time, and you didn't even know it. That was me this year, actually, with the 9 values and 8 axes, or again, it's either that or the other way around. Though, I do not think my political compass has changed at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure it didn't change at all. If it did, it was probably very slight. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the political compass test and the 9 axes, 8 values, or again, flip it around, whichever one it is, that I did at the beginning of this year in April. And then the ones I did in, I believe, October of this year. So you can see the difference and the changes already that I have had, whether philosophically, ideologically, or whatever else, when it comes down to these values and axes and all that stuff politically. It's going to be interesting because some of the changes I did not expect at all, especially, again, so fucking fast and quick. It's very interesting. I mean, technically with me, it can really heavily depend on my emotional state and my mood and how much I've rested, because that can dictate to just how much, basically, my analytical half comes out. My analytical half is very negative, so everything's black, white, yes, no, absolutes. Everybody's wrong, I'm always right, very authoritarianist. So it's very interesting to do that and then go through that if I happen to know I'm at least have tendencies where I'm kind of partially in that state of mind, then go through these things and actually work to know that and control and really make sure that it's not the emotional negatives of that half of me dictating my answers, even though sometimes I think it probably can leak through sometimes because of the anxiety I can get and the the tension I get as a result of being stressed about what that half of my mind wants me to say versus what I actually really feel about it. Why it's so surprising is because of the fact that I intentionally don't do these when I'm in that kind of a state of mind, because I know how much it can influence and impact it to be an unrealistic result. So, without further ado, let me show you the statistics, the differences. It's gonna be great. So here you can see the file I have them in. And what we're going to do is going to look at the dates. So these are the latest ones. These are the political axes. And I intentionally changed and altered some of my answers in the political axes when I did this on the same day, because I wanted to see the differences that it would make and how much of a difference it would make. Clearly, as you could probably tell from here, it didn't make as much of a difference as you might assume it would. which is probably more of a good thing, but then again, it could also be a bad thing. I don't really know. It's up to your interpretation, obviously. And then these are the values. So I did it on April 26th of this year, and then November 1st is when I did these, and it is 8 values, 9 axes. So this is the more severe one. So this was the alterations I did to my answers, because the thing I wish that these things had was an ability to say neither agree nor disagree. That's what I wish they had, was a neither agree nor disagree middle one, so you could have a more balanced set of answers. They don't put that in there, so you have to go for one severe or the other. You have to say somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. And for me, I'm the kind of person with these kind of things, especially politically, where literally I either have no opinion on them, or even if I do, it's a very neutral one where I have like no particular stance on it whatsoever. And so it would be neither agree nor disagree. You know, they all have, of course, these questions that result in me having to say that I either agree or disagree, even though technically I would, if I was being honest, I would say neither agree nor disagree, because I don't have an opinion on them. And I feel like that would obviously be able and should end up altering and changing your results actually a fair amount, because I guess technically that would sort of apply you more towards political centrism. So you're kind of more balanced between right and left than anything. Conservative, liberal, whatever. So again, this is the more severe one I did, because I would alter the questions because of that to either agree or somewhat agree or somewhat disagree, or from somewhat agree to agree. And I think one I did from agree to strongly agree, and one from disagree to strongly disagree. And this was the difference, was that alteration one, the severe one. Whereas this one is actually, at the time, on October the 9th, where I actually placed with my initial one, which was, again, me being as unbiased and honest as possible to exactly what I actually legitimately believe and thought about these questions. Which, of course, was technically partially dishonest, as it had to be, because, again, they didn't have neither agree nor disagree. So it has me basically right around, I can't remember who it was that was closest to this. I'll actually get a official image to place over my face to show you in comparison where everybody supposedly places on the axis. So obviously there's a lot of, I think, and a lot of other people do too, there's a lot of inherent biases and issues with the political compass scale. It just doesn't feel definitive at all. It actually feels kind of vague and kind of up in the air. And I actually, for the only Ben Shapiro video I've ever watched, because I've always not had the guts to be willing to watch a Ben Shapiro video, just because I was always unsure about, like, if I really want to do that. Plus, again, YouTube is really stupid with how the way algorithm works. You watch one single video that's slanted a certain way, and immediately everything is recommended to you that way, even though your entire watch history is like gaming videos that have obviously no slant. And then suddenly, oh hey, let's just recommend you nothing but a bunch of videos that are all right wing. Oh cool, thanks, great. That's definitely that definitely makes sense. Yep. Not like there's 4,999 other fucking videos in my watch history that you have, and probably more than that you just don't tell us, that you could use in your algorithm to make sure that you actually give me legitimately watchable recommendations. So anyway, so the only one I ever watched, and it's fairly recently, was Ben Shapiro's video doing the political compass scale. A lot of the things he said in it and the critiques he gave about it were actually pretty akin to my own thoughts. Like they made total sense about it was just common sense, basically, is what he used to basically explain why there's a lot of gaps on a lot of issues that he takes up with the political compass, and why he feels like it would also be rather overall inaccurate. And also, one of the things he mentioned, which is very true, clearly, if you really pay attention, even without bias, is they're trying to get you, they want you to answer emotionally rather than rationally. So they want to pick out certain people from the crowd and give them a strong, have them give a strong opinion, strongly agree or disagree, whatever. They want that severity. They want that extremism, so that way, or, that they want you to say yes or no, agree or disagree on the extremes, because that way it basically fits a very specific perception they want to give. And so that's why a lot of the questions, even in the in-depth one, are they're kind of vague. And at the same time, again, they will not let you say neither agree nor disagree. And there was a few things that he wanted to do that too, that he wishes were, that again, that choice was there. Just like, I really wish it was there, because I'd say it was actually probably a good like 25 to 30% of the questions of the 289 or whatever it is, so the big one is, on the political compass scale, I would have actually answered neither agree nor disagree. Like, literally, that's just how I am with that stuff. But you have to answer one way or the other. And so I felt bad about answering one way or the other because it was dishonest. Like, I didn't know what sway it would give. It just didn't feel quite right to do either or, because again, it's not really how I feel about it. But the main group, it clearly is trying, a lot of the questions are trying to get to have an extreme reaction, is people that they want to deem as right-wing, conservative, and therefore traditionalist, and therefore potentially prejudiced, so bigots, racists, sexist, whatever. Like, they want to find those people. They want to trigger them enough to answering severely on one of the question or another set of questions in it. You can clearly tell there's a very specific group they're trying to focus on, trying to get that kind of a reaction from. So that in itself shows there's definitely political bias behind the questions in the compass as well, and therefore even more inaccuracies and problems with it. But overall, I still find this kind of interesting. I still find it interesting, and I still find it valuable in one way or another, at least just, again, to cure a little bit of curiosity, and again, just because it's very interesting to kind of study and look at and think, interesting. Let's look at my 9 axes and then my 8 values politically. Pretty great, but as of today, April 26th is what I was going to say of this year. They had the 58% federalism and 42% unitary. Unitary basically meaning, in other words, authoritarian dictatorship or one-party system. 57% democracy and 43% authority. 57% globalist and 43% isolationist. 84% pacifism and therefore 16% militarist. They have 28% security and 72% freedom. 41% markets and 59% equality. 59% secular, 41% religious. 39% progress and 61% tradition, 73% multiculturalist, and 27% assimilationists. And again, this is the 9 axes as of April 26th of this year. But it's going to be interesting to be able to then directly compare them with November 1st of this year, because you're going to see some differences. Right off the bat, you see a difference between federalism and unitarianism. 54% federal and 46% unitary. 52% democracy, 48% authority. 58% globalist and 42% isolationist. 79% pacifist and 21% militarist. 74% freedom and 26% security. 57% equality and 43% markets. 60% secular and 40% religious. 64% towards tradition and 36% towards supposed progress, and then 67% multiculturalists and 33% assimilationists, which is also a really interesting swap of position and balance between these. And just in general, like if you say authority, unitarianism, isolationist, and secularism, it goes more towards secularism, but yet more towards tradition. And then it also swapped more towards multiculturalism rather than assimilationism. It's just kind of interesting because it feels like those kind of contradict each other almost. At least in the way that we're influenced, in the way that we are taught, and the things that we read and see. And the cliches, the loudest mouths of them all fit these certain cliches that our society has made for people with certain values one way or another. Say traditionalists, usually they're far more religious. Religious people, therefore, far more traditionalists. A lot of them tend to be more assimilationist in this case than multiculturalist, as in they're a lot more for closed borders than open borders, border control, toning down of immigration and refugees, all that stuff. They usually would be far more for security than freedom, supposedly, they claim. They'd be far more for markets than they would equality, supposedly. They'd be far more isolationist than they would be globalist, far more for authority than democracy, unitarianism versus, well, actually, federalism versus unitarianism, if you're really honest about it. Supposedly, that's how those people are supposed to line up if they have these values, starting with, say, traditionalists and thus religiousness. But instead, it's a literal complete flip right off the bat, where it's more secular, In fact, it's more secular than I was apparently earlier in the year than I was religious, but I was far more traditionalist than I was progressive than earlier in the year, which is very interesting to me because of the fact that those two are complete transpositions of each other. So it's kind of almost fishy in a weird way. But then again, there's no reason why you can't have values that stance on one side and the other. In fact, you could literally have one extremism and another extremism that are on complete polar opposite ends of the spectrum all at the same time. You can technically have that, even if they contradict each other. It happens actually more frequently than I think most people realize. It happens actually probably a lot in life, let alone in politics. And so now, of course, we have our 8 values of politics, or 8 political values, as of the 26th of April, which goes to 64.7% equality and 35.3% markets, 32.2% nation versus 67.8% world, 65.9% liberty versus 34.1% authority, 63.3% progress versus 36.7% tradition. Then you go to November 1st of this year, which, if you think about it, wasn't that long ago. It was just over a month ago. Here you have 59% equality and 41% markets, 32.2% nation, 67.8% world again. You have 66.3% liberty and 33.7% authority, and 42.6% tradition versus 57.4% progress. Which, again, I find interesting. And then, if you can, again, directly compare them, you could already see the differences. In fact, there's a pretty vast difference already off the bat between equality and markets. I went more towards markets than equality, and then the only thing that stayed exactly the same was the diplomatic axis. When it comes down to progress, again, even here, it supports the idea that I went more towards traditionalism than progress. However, if you directly compare those to that of the 9 axes, it gets even more interesting. Because 64% tradition versus 42.6%, 57.4% progress versus 36%. I find that very interesting, to be honest with you. I really do. Because of how different that is. Now, if we took the April ones and stuck them side by side, see how different they are from each other. Here's a direct comparison. Yeah, I mean, you can still see it's pretty severe, the difference between the axes and the values when it comes down to the progress versus tradition one. It's very, very interesting to me. Very interesting. Because these directly contradict each other, which I find very interesting, especially since they're also made by the exact same group of people. So it's very, very interesting to me that these directly contradict each other so aggressively. Now, it's not to say or invalidate it and say, oh, you know, it's because obviously it's not meant to work that way. It might actually be made to work that way. You never know. But it's just one of those things that I really wanted to show. So here we can supposedly see, where each of these political figures, some historical, some current, supposedly accurately placed on where they would be on the political spectrum. I have strong questions about it, though, especially considering Bernie Sanders is somehow slightly more authoritarian left than he is libertarian left, which I find kind of weird. I don't know what supposed digging they might have done to find his actual policies and how they're supposedly authoritarian. If you replaced him with AOC, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, then yeah, I would probably say you're more accurate there, except she'd probably have to be a little more authoritarian, I would say. Especially considering a lot of her policies are extreme left, which is so far left that I say they're right. I've actually grown over time hearing all the different policies, all the different ideas she has, and all the different beliefs she has and things, and those things she's pushing that I do not like at all. Like, they're actually quite authoritarian. And some of them are outright, and it's very, very disturbing that so many people think it's liberal. Because authoritarianism is the exact opposite of liberalism. In fact, that's exactly why libertarian is on the opposite end of the spectrum here in the compass than authoritarian. Because they're in opposition to each other. They're complete opposites. So it's weird. But then again, like I've expressed, whether in my skits or whatever else, it is commonplace, especially in the United States, where a lot of people who identify as left left-wing progressives, so progressive liberals, are actually far more conservative right-wing authoritarians than they are left-wing libertarians or liberals. This is supposedly where they place, and if it wasn't specifically one person, then they'll just put the nation instead for some reason. I don't know if they mean Vietnam as in Viet Cong as in the North back in the day, or if they mean actual modern day Vietnam currently. Probably modern day Vietnam currently, but then again, I don't know why they're supposed to be on the left, but sure. They have China and Pakistan. I have no idea why the heck they don't go with their actual current leaders, but they just went with the nations instead. Luxembourg. Yeah. Sure. And then other ones that do this. And also, Marxism does not exist. That is a fallacy. You cannot be of the mind of somebody else. And plus, he was entirely apolitical. If you're entirely apolitical, that means you have no weight in politics in the sense that you do not vote, you do not influence, you do not do anything. Because you know it's all bullshit. That's exactly who Karl Marx is and was. He was the guy who showed the world and was trying to show the world how pointless it was to support governance and politics, because of the fact that it just, not only does it repeat itself throughout all of its history and existence in humanity, it just viciously repeats the same cycle over and over and over, which was the entire point of why he made the manifestos of communism, and then enlisted the help of Friedrich Engels to help him write the next stage of the political cycle of the world that didn't have a title, or thus a manifesto, thus a description, a clear defining pamphlet for what that political ideology was. It existed, it just didn't have a name. It didn't have, again, something that explains what it is, or what they believe. That's why he wrote the Communist Manifesto and enlisted the help of Friedrich Engels from France to then co-write the Socialist Manifestos. It wasn't because they believed in it, it was because of the fact that they needed it so they could actually then officially have a title and something that then people could look up the title of, the political philosophy of, now that it has a name, and thus understand and learn what it really represented and what it really stands for. So that's why they did that. It wasn't because they believed it, wasn't because that was Marxism, and that's what he wanted. It was literally because they needed it so they could actually complete his entire point, which was, as a political scientist and researcher, the political cycle of the world. So that's how you got those things. But he was entirely apolitical. In fact, the older he got, the more apolitical he became, and the more cynical he became towards anything politics, because he kept seeing the cycle continue to procreate itself, and keep repeating itself. And he saw how everybody was still stupid enough to believe in it and think we needed this. And so he just basically got more and more cynical until the day he died. So you can literally, Marxism cannot and will not exist. It is impossible for Marxism to actually exist, because everything is stacked against that being a political mindset and belief system, because it just can't exist. You can't be of the mind of somebody, and you also, he was entirely apolitical. So this would argue that he was very political. He was not. So if people would actually read the real manifestos and read his actual real unadulterated, unaltered work, unedited work, which you can access for free, by the way, online. It takes a lot more digging than it used to, because they don't want you to see what he really believed and what he was really pointing out, because it would weaken their grip on power and control over people, because people would realize it really is pointless and that they really are just repeating the same cycles over and over. And that's exactly the point. They want you to keep believing that you need this, and thus you keep going through the cycle that they're pushing you through, because you don't know any better. This would help you know a lot better, so they try to bury it as far as they can. The more influence it gets, the more they alter all of his works and claim that those are the real unadulterated works, even though they're very adulterated, as they bury his actual work that are truly unedited and adulterated. That said, if people could keep digging and find them, they'd see and learn that that's exactly who he was as a person. He was trying to point out how pointless it is, and thus proves how intensely apolitical he was and how cynical about politics he was and governance. It's actually very interesting that then at some point everybody corrupted him and what he actually believed, and thought he actually believed in communism, socialism. It's like he didn't, but okay. So again, you cannot be a Marxist. Just really want to get that out there and explain that. So this is a fallacy. And it's pretty painful. Apparently, I'd be closest to where they put Jill Stein on the scale, where they think that Jill Stein would be. I assume that's who the Stein is. It might actually be somebody completely unrelated and different that is not Jill Stein. I honestly couldn't tell you who Stein is. I assume it's Jill Stein, but I have no idea. So basically, they have me about here, I think. So I'm well, actually, let's see, negative 3.45. So it'd be, I don't know which 3 it was. I think it was this way. So it's like here, I think is where they, or no, I guess it would be here is where they have me. Somewhere about like, yeah, in this vicinity is where they had me. And so it's like, yeah, I'm apparently closest to that of Jill Stein, apparently, supposedly, according to that. Then you have fucking Pinochet. I like how though they have Pinochet as more severe authoritarian than even Hitler and Stalin. This also shows how bullshit this is. Because if Pinochet can be in the most severe position that anybody is on this entire map, there's no excuse for Adolf and Joseph to both be away from that severity. They absolutely were over there in that severity. I don't know how the fuck that works. So they make him out to be the worst dictator ever to exist. Meanwhile, there's fucking Stalin, who's literally the single most deadly human being ever to exist. My fucking camera decided to autofocus and go out of focus again. God fucking damn it, you piece of shit. Stop taking my, dictating my focus and ruining the focus. Why does it always do that? It's like, does that with the fucking lighting too. Ugh. I like how I'm talking about dictators, and that's when I started to talk about these dictators, it dictated to me, my fucking camera. Like, that's a little on the nose, don't you think? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's also, I feel like, kind of some more proof and evidence that this whole political compass thing is still biased and not exactly accurate. Because again, Joseph Stalin is the single most deadly human being to ever exist. There's never been a single human being ever in recorded history that has ever slaughtered and killed, assassinated as many people single-handedly by himself as this man has. Joseph Stalin is literally the single best, most deadly assassin that's ever existed. By far. There's nobody that comes close to how many people he's managed to kill all on his own, by himself, by his own hand. Literally. Like, no guns ever used. It is literally, whether it's strangulation, poison, beatings, stabbings, slicings, like that was how he operated. And he did that. That's how he got into power, was he literally assassinated every single political power holder ahead of him in line of succession, and he just killed and killed and killed and killed until he even killed the very person that made him his protege, or that made Stalin his own protege, which of course was Vladimir Lenin. He even killed him off because of the fact that, fuck him. Now they say instead he died of multiple strokes, apparently. There's somewhere in history, if you can find that without it being so fucking suppressed and censored or deleted, that you'll be able to find that shifted somewhere. Where suddenly now it's like, oh, Joseph didn't kill him. He had strokes. Yes. That had to have changed probably somewhere around the time actually the USSR supposedly had fallen. I don't see how the fuck it just randomly shifted like that. He killed him and took his position of power. He literally killed his way through the Bolsheviks to become the USSR's leader. Like, that's what happened. He killed his way all the way to the top. Originally, he learned to kill for survival, and then in theft, and yeah, then transferred into theft, and then theft into hatred, and then hatred into political venomance and aggression for power, thirst for power, and that's yeah, he's the single most deadly person by his own initiative and his own doing. So to put him so far away from both Adolf and Pinochet is weird. Also, I feel like Stalin's the worst of the two between him and Adolf. I know that's probably not to be accepted because everybody's taught that Hitler was worse, but Adolf was not remotely as bad. Well, he was definitely remotely as bad. He was very close to, very similar and akin to how bad Stalin was, but Stalin was just that little bit more worse, because of how deadly he was and how literally for him, he was a heartless, cold, dark-souled bastard. Like, he just didn't give a fuck about anybody but himself. That's all he gave about fuck about is himself and his power and control, his dictation. That's it. Everybody else, everything else, literally never mattered to Joseph Stalin ever. That's why he could so indiscriminately slaughter and assassinate people, because he just didn't care about their lives. He didn't care about their existence. Didn't care about what happened. Nothing. As long as he got what he wanted, that's all Joseph Stalin cared about. Adolf had severe mental instability and mental issues. And it always feels so bizarre to say this, but he did have a heart. He did have compassion in him. And I think a large, probably not 100% of it, but a large portion of his Aryan beliefs and all this other stuff, I'm sure were birthed of the fact that he was so severely mentally scrambled and unstable and all over the place. Like, especially considering he was also incredibly intelligent and innovative and intellectual. Like, he was absolutely brilliant when it came down to that stuff. And it's so many different things. I mean, it's the weirdest thing to acknowledge, but without Adolf Hitler and his ideas that he then had his scientists work on in the concentration camps on the experiments that killed people, literally, we would not have so much of what we actually literally have our lives saved by in the modern day, or have our health and minds improved in the modern day without that brutalistic, Aryanistic, prejudiced experimentation, deadly experimentation. Without those ideas that he made them do those experiments with, we would not have a lot of the medical stuff that we do now. It's literally because of Adolf's mind that we, and his ideas, that we even, his understandings of things and the human mind and how it works, how it's structured, how easily manipulated it is, and things like that, and how easily faulted it is, that we got these things. And I say this because it's to acknowledge the fact that he was highly, highly intellectual. He was an incredibly intelligent man. I think that bound with how incredibly aware he was of his own mental illnesses and instabilities, his own mind fucking with him, and knowing that he could not figure out why the fuck it was happening or how the fuck to get a handle on it, is not only what made it so much worse, but at the same time, what probably, I would imagine, drove him into these weird things that contradicted even his up and coming in his childhood and his father's history as well. Like, in his mother's history too. It's the weirdest fucking thing. Like, he got so many things backwards, and he flipped so many things around, and he twisted so many things and contorted so many things and got so many things confused. I really do think it's because of that. Because of his intelligence and yet his extreme instability, that's where his severity came from. And that's where a lot of his extremism came from. That's where a lot of his dictatorialness came from. His authoritarianism, his Aryanistic ideals and all of that came from that. In my opinion, I really do believe that's where they came from. At least a large portion of the reason, the basis for where they came from. Maybe not 100%. I guess technically we'll just never know, but that is the truth. And so that's just kind of how I look at it, you know? It's like, if you have to compare the two, one's cold and heartless, the other one did have compassion in him. He was just so fucked up in the head, and he knew it. And with that being that intellectual, and knowing that you're fucked up, and you can't fucking figure out how to fix it, I know I would literally go in a psychotic break. I would go, literally, I'd lose my fucking mind. I'd lose control of myself, because I could not stand being in a position where I knew that was happening to me, and I had no control or ability to do anything about it. It would piss me off so much. It would stress me and strain me so much. It would irritate me and upset me and hurt me so much that I would just fucking get so enraged. It's so angry, and so I would just lose it. Like, that's the kind of emotionally tense person I am. So, and I feel like I'm kind of that way. I'm half a nihilist and half a hyper analytical mind. So as a result, I have extremism to me, and then I have a very balanced half to me that are constantly in contradiction with each other. Having that kind of a weird state to your mind and function to it, and then also knowing you're unstable at the same time, which I used to be mentally unstable. As a kid, Up until I was about 13, I had schizoaffective disorder. Just a little clarification on this. It depends on which coastline of the US really you're on, what schizoaffective disorder is. On the West Coast, it's said to be schizophrenia with bipolar. On the East Coast, they think that's complete bullshit, and they demand that is absolutely wrong. It literally depends on which philosophy your psychiatrist comes from. Do they come from the East Coast teaching philosophy or the West Coast teaching philosophy? Literally, even there's constant disagreements and division by the supposed experts in the United States. Like, everything is division. It's like this country's practically, in fact, it literally, technically, I think about it, is built on division. This country thrives on division. That's exactly how it was made. It was built on that. It became what it is on that, and it still is so fucking divided, if not even more than ever. So actually, technically, the United States is a country of pure division, not unity. Again, may reiterate, Pinochet, Hitler, Stalin should be far closer together on this political compass if it was honest and accurate. Having them so far apart doesn't feel right, especially having Pinochet be considered so much further extreme than even Stalin, who's so fucking personally vindictive and deadly and heartless. It is the weirdest thing to see Pinochet considered more severe. All three of these guys all committed a lot of genocide. They all committed genocide, including of political opponents, and including in their just average citizenry. If you stood opposed, they would do that. They would cleanse you. They all did that. So it can't be the genocides or the oppression that of opponents and opposing values and ideals that puts Pinochet further in the extreme. So they belong way closer together. And if Pinochet can be that extreme, then there needs to be even further extreme where Stalin, at least Stalin, can go. That's my opinion, and to me that makes basic logical sense, but just some perspective I really want to share there. So that's another thing I feel like is quite inaccurate about them. I like how Saudi Arabia, by the way, is over here, really close to Hitler. Whoops! But then again, they have Reagan so close to Pinochet. It's like Ronald Reagan was not good. He did a lot of shitty shit. But to have him that severe is also, I feel like, too extreme. I don't feel like that's very accurate. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. This is really interesting to look at and kind of study and be like, I don't feel like a lot of this is accurate. Some people might think it is very accurate. I don't think a lot of this is accurate. Who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't think it is at all. I think there's a lot of things that can prove the inaccuracy of this, but that's just me, though. So I digress. Anyway, there's your political commentary tagged on to evaluation of me with my supposed 9 political axes, 8 political values, and my political compass. Just basically like an overview, a look at, an evaluation, whatever you want to call it, of them, you know? I thought it would be kind of fun to look at, especially considering I probably should have done this as a preface. Personally, I am apolitical. I'm not registered to vote. I refuse to register to vote. I refuse to register to vote. I will never vote, and I'm committed to never getting involved in politics ever. Actually, I feel like I relate a lot to Karl Marx and his cynicism and apolitical nature to politics and governance myself. Now, from everything I read, I would not at all dare call Karl Marx an anarchist. He never went so severe or so far as to say that he hated governance and rule and authority, laws, politics, so much that he literally didn't think we should have it at all. In fact, I bet he probably, if I could sit down and bring him back to life and sit down and have lunch with him and talk with him about that, I bet you'd find, and I would find, that he actually still believes that human beings require structures. They require limitations, they require boundaries in order to feel sane and feel in control of their own selves, let alone others. I would think he'd probably be one of those people who probably still make sense to him. They need something like that. I personally am technically, by textbook definition, the original, by the way, textbook definition, an anarchist. As in, I am a person that is all for a world without any rule, governance, or authority whatsoever. So no rules, no laws, no boundaries, no limits, no control, no authorities, no police, no nothing. Like, literally no governments, nothing. Nobody has any power. Nobody has any control. There's no rules, there's no laws. Anybody can do literally anything they want, whenever the fuck they want, and not a damn person can do a damn thing about it. Every man, woman, child for themselves kind of philosophy, you know? But not as in a barbaric way, or, you know, as such a self-serving way. Not at all in that way at all. I know a lot of people have to jump to that conclusion. Oh, so self-righteous, arrogant. No, not even close. If you think that, you're the one who's being an extremist at that point mentally. You're not under, because there's obviously other ways, other things that could mean. In this case, that you're free. Like, you're literally actually free. For the first time in existence of humanity, people are actually free. Literally. In every single department, every single way, they are 100% free to do anything and everything they've ever wanted, no matter what, at any point in time. If you want to jump off a cliff, you can do it. If you want to shoot yourself, you can do it. If you want to go and hijack Staples Center and hold the biggest fucking party and rave and sleepover ever, you could do that. If you wanted to be an exhibitionist, you could do that and nobody could stop you. If you wanted to go and, I don't know, just go randomly enter random cars you see on the side of the road and go for a joyride, you can do that. You know, if you wanted to take a trip on an airplane, you could go do that and not barter, not pay anything, not give any value, just get on. And they technically couldn't do anything about it. They just have to accept that you're not going to give them anything for the trip wherever the hell they're flying to. Like, you could do whatever the heck it is. And that means that, yeah, obviously there's going to be people that are going to do really fucked up shit. A lot of people, especially off the bat, because now it's okay. And they're going to think it's cool and fun and exciting and woo, what a thrill. Until I'd say probably about 10, 15 years, maybe 20 at most down the road. And then eventually you'll notice by that point, there will have been a massive plummeting and fall off of people that are doing stupid shit and extreme shit and all that stuff and fucked up shit. Because they've got they milked all the adrenaline they can out of it and all the supposed excitement and fun out of it. Because now, again, they've gotten so used to doing it that now it's no longer has the fun because, again, nobody will stop them. Because you can't. Like, it's literally, you can do anything you want and nobody's allowed to do anything about it. So you're going to get bored of it really quickly, the people who do those things. And yeah, you're going to have people that are going to do all sorts of other extreme things, whether they're fucked up or not. Up to interpretation, I guess. But, you know, you're going to have people do whatever the fuck they want to do. That's an inevitability. And that's a good thing, actually. I feel like that's how we were meant to be. We were supposed to be able to just always be in full anarchy. Just do whatever the fuck we want, whenever we want. Nobody able to tell us no. Like, that's how I feel like we're all meant to live our lives. But, of course, it's my personal opinion and take on it. But that's just how I see it. I figured it's quite important to share that because technically I am not political. I am actually apolitical. I mean, again, it's part of the countless list of reasons why I refuse to get involved in politics. I refuse to register to vote. I refuse to vote. I refuse to do anything like that. I refuse to influence elections. I refuse to influence anything. It's because I don't give a fuck. Again, I'm technically anarchist, so it's one of those countless reasons on my endless list that seems to be ever growing of reasons why I'll never get involved in politics. That said, it doesn't mean that I don't think politically, or I can't think politically, or I won't think politically, or I won't get into political debates or conversations or something, or do political investigations. I absolutely do. I absolutely have a ability to take on a political mind and really look into things and think, okay, this makes more sense than this or whatever else to me, you know, because I absolutely have opinions and ideals and stuff politically, 100%. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother have done this video, let alone done the axis and the compass and the values in the first place, because there would be no point. I wouldn't have any value or any opinions, anything at all in politics. I do. It's just that I'm not trying to influence anything. I will not try to implement them. I will not try to get people to believe them. I will not try to accept them. I will not try to get anybody to listen to them. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, because I'm never going to get involved in politics because I know it's a bunch of bullshit. That makes any sense to anybody. But I wanted to give this here as that, and I guess I could technically edit this into a preface, so maybe you will see this as a preface, but yeah. So just understand, though I am doing a political video, and I did the political compass, it's because of the fact that technically I do talk about politics here and there, and I do debate about politics here and there. I really do mull things over and think about them and analyze them and see if they make sense to me, or if it seems more untrustworthy, whatever else to me, whatever, you know. Cool. Great. But I don't spend very much time thinking about it. Like I do, when I do, I spend a lot of time on it. I make sure I'm very detailed and in depth because, again, have a hyper analytical half, so I actually overthink things and really look into things excessively deep, way more than most people ever dare would, because that's how my hyper analytical half works. So yeah, I do that when I am in the political state, but otherwise, day-to-day life, I put very little time or effort or energy towards or into politics at all in the grand scheme. There's very little value I have in it, and so there's very little time I put into it. Like, I am technically, therefore, an anarchist by its original definition and all of that. That said, before I get into a completely different topic and video, because grammar and being prescriptivist, we're going to definitions of words. Have apparently now 9, maybe even more now, different applications, definitions, and uses in anarchy. Anyway, we're going to end the video here, so I suppose I got the points. So anyway, yeah, I guess if I had any kind of a message I wanted to give out there for encouragement or whatever else, or just as like something that I really feel I wish more people take on, it's that think for yourself. Understand that even if somebody has a title, whether it's expert or biologist or whatever the fuck it is, political scientist, just because they have a lot of expertise and a lot of time in it and they have those titles of expert does not make them know what they are talking about. It doesn't mean they know shit. It doesn't mean that they're right or that they're wrong. It just is what it is. It's a fucking title. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. So, and of course, a lot of them are going to have agendas. They're going to have biases, whether it's because they're paid to, they're taught to, or they actually personally really do. Doesn't matter. You got to understand, everything should be questioned. Literally every little thing should be questioned, taken with a grain of salt, and never fully believed. In my opinion, that's what I would encourage you to take into, especially things like politics, and understand that you need to make up your own damn mind. Whatever makes the most sense to you in your mind is obviously typically what you're going to end up believing, and that's okay. It doesn't matter if I disagree with you. It doesn't matter if anybody else disagrees with you. It doesn't matter if I would call you a lunatic for thinking as you do, because it's that different. That's not meant as an insult. It's meant, in other words, as the way of me saying, I just can't wrap my hand around how you think that makes sense. And I actually encourage you to be that way towards other people too. Be bluntly honest like that. And be like, in other words, explain to them that same thing. It's not an insult. It's not me demeaning you or tell you you're wrong, you know, or say fuck your opinion. It's literally saying is that I can't wrap my head around it. It makes so little sense, if literally no sense to me, like negative amounts of sense, that I think you're insane for thinking and believing it. But you're welcome to believe that, and it's all good. Like, I'm not going to avoid you now, or I'm not going to think that you're a piece of shit, or you can go fuck yourself, or like I'm going to think worse of you or any less of you now because I don't understand the way you think. Like, that's not the way mature, rational, calm, cool, collected adults function, or at least not the way they're meant to, but now almost all of them do. It's a childhood bickering match, is all the fucking circus is of politics these days anyway. So that's why I encourage you to, that's why and what I encourage you to do. Is just think for yourself, understand that it doesn't mean, just because they have a title does not mean, and even experience, does not mean they know what the fuck they're talking about. They might not know shit. They just think they know. You just don't know. So take everything with a grain of salt, question everything, and make sure you make up your own mind by whatever the fuck makes the most sense to you at the time. Because again, like I said in the very, very beginning, everybody changes. Everybody's mind changes, and a lot of times you might shock and surprise yourself with how quickly your own self and values and mind and severities shift and change over time. Because everybody is going to naturally shift and change over time. It's just an inevitability. So that's why I say at the time. Totally okay if you change your opinions or your beliefs, what you see as fact or fiction or whatever else, you know. Technically, the entirety of everything in existence and the entire world and universe is subjective anyway, to the onto the individual. Everybody makes their own reality. It's great, actually, in a way. It's agonizing and it's great at the same time. It's a contradiction, but it's a beautiful one and a terrible one all at the same time. Yeah. Anyway, enough of me blabbing on. So, I hope you guys got the gist of it. I hope you learned something new today. I hope you enjoyed something or whatever. I don't know. Feel free to tear each other apart in the comments, insult me, dislike the video, and get my channel banned for my incredibly incorrect and terribly terribly dangerous misinformation and opinions here that I'm sharing. My incredibly negatively impactful encouragement, because people might actually take it seriously and believe it and think that that's a good idea to question everything and therefore, not trust experts, and therefore it's just, very fucking dangerous what I'm doing. I need my channel blacked out and banned, and I need to be just counseled. So make sure you do that in the comments down below, and I'll read it, and I'll see you never in that case. But, kick life's ass. Make it your bitch instead of you being its bitch, like it always is. Go out and do whatever the fuck you want with your life. Fuck the majority. And have fun with it. Go with your natural flow. I'll see you all later. Stay safe, smile today, make yourself laugh. See you later, bye-bye.